Bahrain 2023. Max Verstappen has started his own formula. Esteban Ocon has joined an online lobby. And beware,
fast starting Charles Leclerc.
Let's review race 1 of the season. This is F1 More Thing, and I'm your host, a man who has just had 2 coffees and will shortly be joining Charles. It's Joe Pilbrow. Welcome, everybody, to F1 More Thing. Race 1 of the season from Bahrain is complete, and it was one of the most comprehensive wins of Max Verstappen's career. It's a very, very strong way for Red Bull to start the season, and to be honest, it's ominous for everybody else, with people saying, and I don't just mean people, I mean competitive drivers saying, I'd be surprised if they didn't just win every race, which is depressing. Is it depressing? It's not depressing if you're Max Verstappen winning by 12 seconds over your teammate and then nearly 40 seconds over the next non-Red Bull, maybe Red Bull car. He was 40 seconds in front of Fernando Alonso, but Alonso had to do quite a lot of fighting throughout his race, and he was the entertainment, whereas Max was just the, let's turn the engine down and we'll see if we can make it to the end on the lowest power mode available. He could have essentially left the handbrake on. He could have left it in first gear and gone around at pit limiter pace. Well, quite like Lando Norris did, I suppose. He may as well have started his own formula. That is just a ridiculous way to start a season. Let's hope it gets a lot closer than that. Formula 0.5 is good, but when there's only one car in it, I'm not a massive fan of it. So well done to Red Bull. We're going to need them to either slow down, or for that to have been quite track specific, or for other cars to speed up their rate of development. Their lack of wind tunnel time in comparison to everybody else, in terms of the top getting the least and the bottom getting the most, hopefully that's going to come together at some point. And also their sort of penalty for the cost cap infringement last year is hopefully going to come into effect soon as well. Either way, from that performance, it's hard to see anything other than sort of reliability getting in the way of Max and his third world championship. But we don't like to say things like that in the first race, even though it's pretty much guaranteed, nailed on. He's going to win it at a canter. But I'm not going to say that. As I said, I'm not going to say that. It would be wrong of me to say that in the first race, and therefore I'm not going to say it. Luckily, though, we have some battles in behind that are very interesting. Not with Ferrari, though. Not a great start from them. They've got some pace. They were comfortable second, but and they managed to split the Red Bulls in the first lap. Very good start. That was probably the one thing that wasn't very good from the Red Bulls was as a start. Both Red Bulls very slow off the line, nearly taken by both the Ferraris. And yeah, Ferrari had some all right pace. Ferrari looked set for a solid third place for most of the race until the control electronics sharted themselves out of the race. And I believe it was the element that they had actually changed as a precaution just before the race. So that's fantastic. Just leave it be. It worked in qualifying. Leave it be. But as everybody's been talking about, it's not always positive to finish the race in Bahrain. A DNF last season for Max in 2 out of the first 3 races didn't affect him winning the World Championship. But then again, Ferrari will put the colourful wigs on and all of a sudden find out that they can't finish a season coherently. But as Max showed last year, a DNF in Bahrain equals champagne and your name stained on the championship crown. So maybe it's not a benefit to finish the race. Maybe that is a good omen for 2023. So all could be well for Charles as he fast sharts himself to an engine penalty in race 2. It's very hard to see that being lucky, but we'll see. The other Ferrari, Carlos, suffered from sort of high degradation. He was not really on the pace of the top 3. And then the only reason why he lost out to the 4th place was Ferrari's tyre degradation is insane. So let's hope that they can sort that out. The Bahrain terrain is what's going on with these rhymes? The terrain in Bahrain is particularly abrasive, hasn't been changed since they built the circuit, so it's not a really representative track to race on. So let's see what happens going forward. The next couple of races are going to be pretty monumental in deciding what the actual pecking order is. We essentially start testing and say, well, we don't really know what the pecking order is. Then we go into qualifying and say, well, yeah, we don't really know what the pecking order is. And then we have the first race and we say, oh, we don't really know what the pecking order is. And then until somebody really actually wins the bloody thing, we don't really know what the pecking order is. So that's pretty much how the season will unfold. But fair play to Lance Stroll, it has to be said. Apart from his rather wristy move up the inside that hit his teammate in lap one, risky move. It's big congratulations to him, I think, to have got in the car and driven like he did. Recently broken wrists and a broken toe. It is pretty heroic, but I don't know. Does anybody else get the impression that Fernando Alonso is being a right kiss ass at the moment? And I can understand it. He's got a teammate who is the son of the owner of the team. So be a kiss ass and it might get you somewhere. But like there's being friendly and supportive, and then there's calling him world championship material and saying that he's your hero. Such a little brown nose, Fernando. Till Stroll beats him in a race, and then all of a sudden it's knives out, I imagine. Throughout the whole race, it was pretty close between Aston and Mercedes. They were swapping places. They were clearly undercutting and overcutting or attempting to do that to each other. The Astons had the overall pace, but Mercedes weren't too far behind them. But it's strange to consider them as the fourth fastest team now. That car is going to look radically different very soon. And by radically different, I mean radically the same as the Red Bull. It was very nice, actually. I didn't expect to see it. To see a clip of Hamilton coming over and congratulating Alonso in the media pen afterwards. I am under the impression that they hate each other, and a lot of the time they do, and they make comments about each other, and obviously they've got history at McLaren where they fell out and that kind of thing. But it did seem that they genuinely felt happy for each other. But I feel as if I'm being naive by believing them. I think one or both of them probably will have to go and see a dentist from grinding their teeth so much while they smiled at the other driver. That's what I'm thinking more logically, I think. As I mentioned in the intro, Esteban Ocon getting more penalties than I get when I'm driving on the F1 game. And that's impressive, bearing in mind how many corners I cut by accident. The online lobby of Esteban Ocon has opened. If Max Verstappen has opened his own formula, Esteban Ocon has started up his own lobby. He's shouting at teenagers online. He got a penalty for overshooting his grid box. And then he got a penalty for not serving the penalty fully. And then he got another penalty for going too fast in the pit lane to serve his penalty. Allez le Blues to Alpine for treating the first race like a World Cup. Talking of Alpine, though, it was a shit show for Ocon, but a pretty good start for his new teammate, Gasly. So coming from the back of the grid, finishing ninth, getting in the points, beginning what will eventually be an 80s Formula One punch-up. You know, the footage that they include in montages of drivers walking up to each other and using both hands to somebody's helmet. I think that's how this relationship at Alpine might end, especially now with the complete disparity in performance of that first race. There's going to have to be some pretty serious on-track action from Ocon in the next few races to close that gap. Well, Gasly only got a couple of points, but you know what I mean. The pride may be more important than the points, even though they might not say it. And I think if anyone thinks that isn't going to eventually become sour, you may as well be watching Love Island, mate. And talking of shit shows, Entre Mclaren. They had one of the worst races that is possible to have, I think, other than both cars just DNFing off the line or before the race. It was worse than last year. It was painful to watch. Oscar Pastry not finishing the race, Lando Norris having to pit 5 times to fill up the air in the system in his car. I suppose if you just come into the pit lane every lap, nobody will realize that actually, if you were out on track going down the straight, your car is about as fast as the pit limiter anyway. Darren Brown mind trickery that McLaren have played. I think they're very good at managing expectations. They have good media team. So that was probably part of the team talk. Just one car will drop out, then we can't show how shit we are. Then another one will just come into the pits and we'll fake something like there's air that we need to put in the car, which clearly isn't a real thing. It's not a fucking bike tire, is it? I'm not an engineer, but actually, to be fair to them, although he was a lap down, so it's slightly silver linings not there, but Lando was able to keep up with the Astons and the Mercedes at some point. I don't know how much of that was actual pace and how much of that was just them managing tires and therefore he can keep up with them and he's ragging it. But we'll see. I'm hoping McLaren can pick something up because, I mean, they've sort of confirmed that they are the worst team out of testing. Maybe not the slowest team, but just the worst in terms of that race specifically. Not looking particularly quick. 2 cars pretty much out of the race. There were other cars that didn't get the points that they needed, or they looked a bit slow and that sort of thing. But McLaren really need to up their game. It was sad. It was really sad. And a team that I said during testing was going to be a surprise was Williams, who have genuinely looked like they might be on the up. To come out of the box in the first race, for Alex to get points, to hear how happy they are about it, and to hear James Vowles a lot more on the radio and in interviews. I think this is a good time for the team. They've clearly done something with that car that works, and Logan Sargent was especially impressive. He ended up only a few seconds pretty much behind Alex, and we know how good Alex is. So to have got a good start, to have got some good race pace, to have just followed through the strategy pretty well is a very solid performance from Logan. I liked it. I didn't know anything about him pretty much, other than he's American and some people don't like him is all that I knew. So I'm impressed by that first start. I think he's going to keep Alex on his toes throughout the year, which is impressive. Valtteri Bottas finished best of the rest. Now that there are 4 teams that are not the rest, a good amount of points for him. Zhou finished 16th, which I was a bit surprised by. I thought he was going to get a better start than that. I'm not sure that fully represents the talent in the car. He was fairly close in qualifying between the two of them, and he just didn't seem to get a good start. Went a bit under the radar throughout the race. I think that was just an unlucky strategy that worked out not in his favour. So I think we'll see a bit more from him. But Bottas was, although he clearly didn't have the pace in that car of the Astons and the Mercedes, got a good start. Race experience coming through for the guy. It was a very good race for him. So I'm happy about that. A couple of teams went under the radar, really. We only saw AlphaTauri when De Vries was being overtaken a few times by the people that weren't his teammate, and once when they were his teammate. Although it was quite a nice team effort, actually. I can't remember who they were overtaking, but into turn 1, De Vries went really wide, so it blocked out the other driver, and then Tsunoda just overtook the both of them. It was double teaming for AlphaTauri. Don't put it on the posters, but you know what I mean. And I mean, Haas didn't really get the result that they wanted, with Magnussen finishing 13th, Hulkenberg finishing 15th. I thought that they were going to be a bit better and their racecraft would be something that would come through for them. Hulkenberg has come out and said that he was getting through tyres like hot butter. Wouldn't mind some Pirelli on toast. But then again, my diet is terrible. So maybe that would be actually considered healthy by my body. Hulkenberg had a bit of sort of action in the first lap or two of getting some damage to his front wing and having to pit. And so it just wasn't a very smooth race for them. I still think that they can come through. I mean, if they've got the same problem, if that car is quite similar to the Ferrari, let's say, with quite a few parts on it that are crossover parts, the particularly Ferrari and the Haas, seeming to get through tyres quite quickly. Let's hope that they can both sort that out by the time they get to the next race, and that isn't going to be as much of a problem in Jeddah. In terms of straight line speed, that's going to be the aim of the game. And Mercedes are still quite draggy, but they have got a bit of power. There was a period in qualifying where they were actually on the track dominance chart, and the first stage of the straights, they were actually the fastest, which I found weird. I don't know if that's just a problem with other teams and traction. It seemed that Red Bull was going to be getting good traction, but down the ends of the straights and into most of the corners, Red Bull was dominant, surprisingly. So I think Jeddah is going to be a completely different challenge, and also it benefits us because they've had so much time to test and to practice on this track. So the fact is, they don't really have too much information when it comes to the other circuits, and that's going to make the races a lot more interesting. I think it's going to mix things up. It's going to bring down the ability for the car to dictate the order. And one of the things that I think was evident in that race is the cars ended up finishing pretty close to each other. But that's going to change throughout the season, and as the driver starts to make a bigger play, I believe, in the car. So there you have it, a very quick roundup of the first race of the season. I think overall it was an exciting one, with lots of different storylines coming to play. Confirmation that Aston Martin are fast. Confirmation that Mercedes are going to have their work cut out for them. Confirmation that Ferrari and their reliability is still from a circus. And confirmation that Red Bull are almost annoyingly fast. And also confirmation that all is still to play for in 22 races of the season. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching. Feel free to follow F1MoreThing on all of the socials. Clips and stuff get uploaded to TikTok and to Instagram, so go and have a little look at them. Full episode every week on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts will be uploaded as soon as after every race it is possible to do so. Have a fantastic week off. I will see you for the recap of Jeddah in 2 weeks' time. And don't forget,
Fast starting Charles Leclerc.
this has been F1 More Thing.
Yes, bye-bye.